Hello and welcome to the Bootleg Universe Pitch Show. I am Sam Lasky and I'm joined by Kenlon Clark and Graham Hughes. Today, Kenlon has got a pitch for us about one of our favorite IPs, one we just had an episode about.
Yeah.
So we're gonna build off of that. Ken, do you want to talk about Terminator?
The Terminator. Terminator. So again, yeah. So I think now if you've watched Sam's episode on his pitch on the Terminator, it's brilliant and is definitely it's a series of films.
And we definitely recorded that a week ago and not 5 minutes ago.
We just
put on the same clothes.
Wear the same clothes all the time. Yeah. So just in case. But I think it's a brilliant take on the Terminator and is definitely a way to, I think, expand and kind of take it into a new direction. I think in terms of the take that I would take, in terms of the approach I would take with the Terminator, I would actually go in the opposite direction of what everybody, I think, has been doing to some degree and kind of strip away all of the, I think, overly complicated mythology and the scale of everything and go back to the roots of the original Terminator, and which is a more of a sci-fi horror with action elements approach. So I would go back and take away the big, huge $100 million budget, although that would be awesome, and go back to almost doing it like a very straightforward,
it's like a slasher movie,
like a slasher film.
Right. I think what people forget about the first Terminator movie, because Terminator 2 has such a large imprint in the culture, is that the first Terminator was a psycho killer stalking a woman for 2 hours.
Yeah.
It's Michael Myers chasing Jamie Lee Curtis.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly. So I would go back to those roots. And then, subsequently, as we know, with every iteration of the Terminator since then, they've kind of gone bigger and bigger and bigger, and movies in general have. So, but I would go back to the basics and the roots. And actually what I would do, if I could get away with it, nobody would even know that this is a Terminator film until they're actually watching it. And I would have a guy who is a very normal Joe. His life is somewhat in shambles. He's tried, and maybe his marriage is on the rocks. He's a little, I don't want to say McClane-ish, but kind of in that John McClane.
Maybe more nobody.
More nobody, yes.
The Bob Odenkirk nobody.
In fact, I would even just say, to kind of jump ahead, this is Nobody meets the Terminator. Cool. And he's a normal guy, and something happens, and people start trying to come after him. And he doesn't know why. He's basically on the run. And as you go through the story, let's say through into the second act, you start to see that this guy is actually way more capable than you had originally seen. And in terms of survival tactics, in terms of his ability to fight and combat things. And I would wait as long as possible to reveal that this guy, whatever his name is actually, that's not his real name. This is John Connor. And this is John Connor when his life the Judgment Day had never happened. They stopped Judgment Day, but he'd learned all of this stuff. But he still has this kind of like notion of like, you were supposed to be this great person. Like in some ways, like Judgment Day happening was his purpose. So what happens, like they stop Judgment Day and now he's a guy with like not a lot of purpose, but a whole lot of skills. So all of a sudden you reveal that these people coming after him are actually machines and that they are Terminators. And what I would do is like kind of even like playing with the idea of like maybe Skynet had completely won and obliterated in the future. This is the last shred of John Connor. And so they've come back to just basically finish the job. Come back when, historically speaking, he's at his what's assumed weakest point, and are just basically going to finish. So the John Connor in the future is dead. The rebellion's gone. All shred of it is basically over. He's the one last kind of missing link, is just like within this timeline that could lead to the future. There's this one John Connor who's a kind of a bum loser, but we got to get rid of him. And so he's like Bob Odenkirk in Nobody. If you've seen the film Nobody,
and if you haven't, what's wrong with you?
What's wrong with you? Great movie.
Bus
so awesome.
Fight scene. Amazing.
Yes.
Christopher Lloyd getting to murk some fools.
Oh my gosh. I mean,
The RZA,
Yeah.
the motherfucking RZA.
that third act of Nobody gives you everything that you want out of that film. Like, you never thought you wanted to see Christopher Lloyd, in an action scene at like 80 years old, but you did, and it's awesome. So I basically play with that idea, and I would actually go like in the second half of the film, like he takes them out to the middle of nowhere, and he's basically one-on-one. The second half is him one-on-one with, let's say, 5 Terminators or whatever.
You're doing straw dogs at this point.
Yes, totally. And he's just going to and the second half, I would actually kind of minimalize the dialogue even in this entire thing and just go.
You just go Rambo with it.
Go Rambo. It brings out of him the purpose that he'd always kind of wanted. So in a weird way, he's also creating, he's the nail in the coffin for them as well. Like, it's all hanging in the balance between this. Now, you could, and I'm throwing this out there, so talk me off the ledge, guys, if this is a terrible idea. You could end it with the portal, the time portal. And I don't know if this is ever established in the Terminator films, even though I've seen them all a million times, but I would make it that it's very difficult to time travel. And hence the reason why in this version, only a few Terminators have ever been sent back. In fact, I could even split it into your version, Sam, and be like, they've tried multiple times and some of them have been sent back to other timelines. And
the internal logic in the Terminator movies has always been that like Skynet was on the verge of defeat, and before John Connor took over their main facility and shut them down, there was only time to send one Terminator back.
Right. Yeah. So it's kind of like it's all hanging in the balance. The thing I love too, I think, in the depiction of the resistance in the future in the first Terminator is just how humanity was they were like rats in the tunnel to the machines. Like, they were only existing basically literally in the sewers of humanity, and whatever the population was extremely limited, and they were almost hanging by a thread. So I really like that level of desperation in a weird way that would come with this. Like, the stakes are so high. Talk me off the ledge here. What if, and now I'm getting into the kind of bigger mythology here, the portal opens and the end is actually John Connor going to the future?
It has been established that it's a one-way trip.
It's a one-way trip, but with a stroke of a pen, we can change anything. Yeah. And so somehow, because I'm like, well, that's kind of a fun thing to take going forward, is like, what if John Connor went to the future now and had to kind of like you reverse the Terminator concept moving forward and be like, John Connor now goes to the future and has to try and save the day. Then,
for once, John Connor takes the war to the Terminators.
Yes, exactly.
I think my only objection to that is you've taken the franchise back to its low budget roots,
right?
And to reemphasize, there's no Schwarzenegger.
Right.
I would say there's probably no big name actors even among the Terminators or John Connor.
Right.
You want these people to feel anonymous, feel like they could be anybody.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So it's a low budget thing. I would encourage you to keep it as few locations as possible.
Yeah.
Make it more monster in the house kind
Yes.
of thing. So you've taken it back to this low budget kind of Blumhouse place.
Yes.
Once you send him to the future again, you're back. You're doing what everybody has always done,
Right.
which is make it bigger and bigger and bigger.
Right. I think, okay, let's not do that. Let's fight the temptation, which nobody can do. Let's fight the temptation. He finishes the job, and he basically has come to, so we make it about two things. One, what's this story really about? This story is about that sometimes your life doesn't turn out the way you thought it was going to. Okay. And how do you deal with that? And I think that that's something that anybody can relate to. We don't know, as much as we kind of want, and we make our plans, or we think like this is going to happen and that, we don't know. So how do you adjust as your life is happening? And then when you do get that chance, maybe it comes along, you do get that chance to kind of like make closure with your past and who you thought you were going to be. That's what this story is about. So he finishes the Terminators off and, basically is now got a new lease on life in a weird way.
How does he get to be the savior that he always thought he was going to be. Not because it's not just that he thought his life was going to be full of action. It's
Right.
that he was going to be the savior.
I think that somehow you would have to convey. What I would do, and maybe this is like in a weird way, the final Terminator outside of your brilliant pitch, Sam. In terms of this kind of timeline, is you make it that like this. Somehow it's communicated to him that this is the moment. Your life isn't happening in the future. It's not like, oh, someday in the future I'm going to be great, and when those great things happen, that's when I'm going to shine. He learns that it's this moment right here, right now, and that both Skynet and John Connor are hanging by a thread, and who wins this battle basically has saved mankind. And so the finality of it, somehow it's communicated to him that he did what he was supposed to do here.
If I'm putting on my executive hat here, which I assume is a fedora,
Absolutely.
I think you have to take that idea and personalize it.
Yes.
I think it has to be localized in an actual character that he can save.
Okay. Yes.
I don't know who that character is, whether it's a kid, whether it's a woman, like, or a man. I don't know what that character is, but I think there has to be someone that he then saves, and the message is like, you did get to be a savior. You did save someone.
Yeah.
And even saving one person has brought meaning to your life.
Right. Yeah. And in a weird way, and I would say, because again, the temptation would be that this person, and they kind of did this in Dark Fate, was like, this next person is the next,
it's the next John Connor.
Yeah. And I think what you would do is, again, fighting the temptation to leap into the deeper mythology of things and going into like, what's the roots of this concept, is that this person, we don't know what this person will be. So it's not, he doesn't have to save this person that he's trying to save. So maybe somebody is injured or who knows what, or they're bleeding out, and he has to basically finish these guys off in order to get out of whatever location he's in to save this person. And the potential of that human being that he saves at the end is enough for him to go, for all I know, this person, could be the cure to some disease later on or something like that. But you don't know until you try and you're willing to basically be a hero and try and
in your version, the Resistance hasn't sent anybody back.
Right.
So he has no knowledge of
right.
what the significance of the other person the Terminators are trying to kill is.
Right, yeah. Exactly. So, and you can end it on that note. You can end it on the closure that he basically did what he was supposed to do. And it wasn't in the way he was expecting, but he still got, it all kind of came back around, and now he can move on with his life until part 2. Just kidding.
Yeah, I'm forgetting you have to spoil it with a mid-credits stinger where a portal opens and Nikola Tesla walks out.
I've come for you, John Connor. Or like a pigeon. I'm going with the pigeon sends a little message to him.
Yeah.
Oh, here's a question, just as a one-off before we end. If you were to do Terminator 2 again, but recast instead of having Schwarzenegger, who's the modern Schwarzenegger? Who would you have be the Terminator? I have my pick. I'm curious what you guys would say.
Okay. Sam's pick for sure is.
I have, I have opinions, but I would love to work with in one day, so I'm not going to share those opinions.
He'd be great.
I mean, that would be kind of perfect.
Here, I'll say one thing. The part of the reason why Arnold Schwarzenegger was Arnold Schwarzenegger at that moment was he put himself in the hands of interesting filmmakers.
Yeah.
James Cameron is an interesting filmmaker. John McTiernan obviously had one of the great action movie runs.
Ivan Reitman.
For say what you will about some of Ivan Reitman's movies, there was nobody who was more tapped into the comedy zeitgeist of that moment than Ivan. I mean, Ghostbusters is one of the most innovative and important movies ever made. Like, it invented the high concept sci-fi comedy with lots of special effects that is like every movie now. Every Marvel movie is Ghostbusters, essentially.
Yeah. Kindergarten Cop was like a really surprising, basically kind of crime thriller set in this very like unconventional setting, and it works on
Right.
both levels.
And then doing Total Recall.
Yep.
Yeah.
Paul Verhoeven,
Yeah.
one of the weirdest, most interesting filmmakers of the moment. And Arnold Schwarzenegger put himself in the hands of those interesting filmmakers. And if you want to be if there are any actors out there who want to be the next Arnold Schwarzenegger, who want to put themselves in that place, you can't work with a bunch of hacks. You have to work with interesting filmmakers.
See, this is just making me think my pick is even better.
Okay, give me your pick.
Yeah.
Dave Bautista.
I think Dave Bautista is exactly what I was just talking about.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I mean,
he's worked with Denis Villeneuve
Twice.
He's done James Gunn. Like he's working with these eclectic filmmakers and doing really interesting stuff.
I think,
and he's a good actor.
He's an amazing. I mean, number one, at the amount of fame that he had at the moment, to be in one scene of Blade Runner 2049.
And he crushed it.
He crushed. He's so good in that scene. It is a wonderful performance, and it hangs over the entire rest of the movie.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
Now, who would you get to play John Connor? Okay.
As a joke, I'm going to say Chris Pratt.
I would go as everyman as you could possibly go without it being like so over the top. I don't know who that is, by the way. But I liked when I was thinking, like, Bob Odenkirk in Nobody was an interesting thing. Like he was, you didn't expect it, but you totally believed it. So it would have to be kind of somebody in that vein who, like, you wouldn't expect, but could absolutely,
I mean, my pick for every like franchise recasting thing is Ryan Gosling.
Oh yeah. All right.
Ryan Gosling could be a psycho killer Terminator.
Yeah. Let's
Buy
get Ryan Gosling. Let's do this. Let's make this Terminator film.
All right. Now, if I haven't ended my career by obliquely dissing some of the biggest people in Hollywood, thanks for watching the Bootleg Universe Pitch Show. We'll be back next time with Graham's pitch on
Something.
something. All right. Thanks for watching.